Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we're going to pick up with X-Men Unlimited issue number 9. Now, with this issue alone, we're going to cover a one-shot story where it's really more Wolverine, Beast, and Psylocke going up against two different characters who I would never imagine working together until this issue right here. Now, guys, remember, when it comes to X-Men Unlimited, it came out once every 3 months. So, while the other series came out 12 times a year, this series only came out 4 times a year, and that is really it. Now, with all that being said, when it came to X-Men Unlimited, it was really more Marvel saying, let's use this series as a way to test out new writers or new artists coming into the company to kind of see what they can do when it comes to our X-Men characters. And so getting into the opening pages of this book, we do pick up with a character known as Pylo, and I really hope I pronounced that name correctly. Now for Pylo, he's just drifting in the middle of the ocean, just trying his best, praying that some boat would come by where he'll be saved. And luckily for him, he was, because he was founded by Lee Forrester crew. Now for Lee Forrester, she was very important in the early days of Chris Claremont's X-Men run, where we were kind of left to believe at first that maybe she'll get with Cyclops, but unfortunately she did not. And then there was that brief moment where we were once again kind of believing that she might get with Cable, but once again, she did not. But either way, for her, she is a captain of her own boat. And so once she finds the man, she kind of realized that there's something wrong with him. The man is truly terrified of something or someone. And matter of fact, he says, "Hide me right now from Bloodscream." And so 1 week later, you have her call in the X-Men. Now, she only calls in like Wolverine, Psylocke, and Beast here. Now, this story is written by Larry Hama. And for Larry Hama, the dude was the main writer for Wolverine around this time in Marvel Comics. So you already know. This is going to be a Wolverine storyline. And matter of fact, you have Psylocke and Beast get there first. For Wolverine, he kind of hated the idea of traveling on a plane, but also because around this time in Marvel Comics, for Wolverine, he was really more on the savage side of things. And let me explain, just in case you're kind of getting the comics and don't know what I mean. You see, when it came to Fatal Attractions, you have Magneto rip off the adamantium of Wolverine. Later on, we had learned that when it came to Wolverine, when he gained his mutant ability, originally he was supposed to turn into a savage person. But when it came to Weapon X adding on that adamantium, it had stopped the process. Well, thanks to Magneto, that process was once again able to continue. And so for Wolverine, he's kind of on the savage side of things. But either way, you do have Wolverine finally arrive in Florida, meeting up with Psylocke and Beast, and also Lee as well. Now, when they see Wolverine, he is being chased down by a bunch of wild hogs, but you do have Logan being able to kill them all off, and now they have food for the night. But once you have all the characters being able to regroup, you did have Psylocke go visit Pylo, who's still on his ship with Lee Forrester. Now, when it comes to Psylocke, she does look into his mind. And when she does see the image of, well, Bloodsport or Bloodscream over and over again. Now guys, the reason why I said Bloodsport and Bloodscream because originally he was Bloodsport, but then later on they changed his name over to Bloodscream. But either way, when it comes to Bloodscream, he's a Wolverine bad guy. You see, for Bloodscream, he is a vampire who's trying his best to reverse the idea of him being a vampire. But the only way to turn back to normal is to find somebody who is immortal and take their blood. And that would be right now Logan. Now, technically, there are other characters out there like that, but for Bloodscream, all he knows is just Wolverine. Now, for Logan, he thought he had officially dealt with Bloodscream, but now he knows he's back in the picture once again. Now, if somebody had told me that this storyline would turn into a storyline where I'm going to see Bloodscream as a pirate, I wouldn't believe you at all. But you do have our crew go on the boat of Lee Forrester and go into the ocean. Now, they do get kind of stuck in the fog, but once they get inside the fog, they're then confronted by Bloodscream. Now, like I said, Bloodscream is technically a pirate right now. And matter of fact, he has an army of people on the boat with him under his control. And so it does lead into this long battle between our heroes and his army. And it's kind of funny because the entire battle, you have Bloodscream just talking like a pirate, but it's also Bloodscream telling us like, hey, listen, Logan, I know in the past I would try my best to hunt you down to get your blood because I need your blood as a way to reverse what happened to me. But it's now Bloodscream kind of like, dude, listen, I'm on a whole different mission right now. Like, going after you is not on my list at all at the moment. And matter of fact, you have Bloodscream use a cannon to shoot Logan off the boat. You have Psylocke then have to go save Wolverine. Now, while all that is happening, another ship appear. And you do have Bloodscream say, you know what? That other ship belongs to me. And both ships just leave our heroes behind. And so now for our heroes, their main goal is to hopefully find Bloodscream because, again, the dude has an army of people under his control. But what is his end goal? Now, things get even crazier, and here's the reason why. Because you do have our heroes take their boat, and they realize that they have entered an area where they are now completely floating in just mid-air. And matter of fact, there is an island also floating as well. And so for our heroes, they're kind of like, yo, where in the world are we at the moment? Now, when they do land on the supposed floating island, you do have Wolverine kind of pick up on a certain smell and you recognize it as somebody evil from his past, really from the past of the X-Men. Now, before our heroes are really able to kind of figure out what's going on with this island, you do have Psylocke try to do a side scan across the entire island. But while trying to do that, she is quickly blasted by a mine that was left behind. You see, there are these psychic mines that are placed there just in case somebody who is a psychic try to use their abilities will be hit by one of these mines. Now, you do have our heroes being able to work their way through all the mines and into the temple in the middle of the island. But when they do that, you have Wolverine realize who this island belongs to, and that would be Belasco. Now, for most of the X-Men, they have not dealt with Belasco, and here's the reason why, because he appeared right after you had Chris Claremont take over the X-Men. And so back then it was like Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Cyclops, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody else. But for Beast and Psylocke, they weren't around at all when it came to Belasco. Now, he was a character who was really connected more to another character we all know and love, better known as Magic. Now, with her no longer being around, we can kind of tell that she's no longer a factor in this storyline. But for Logan, he was in this temple before, but it was a whole lot smaller. But then out of nowhere, you didn't have our heroes be confronted by Belasco. Now, for Belasco, he was the original ruler of Limbo when it came to our coverage over the X-Men. But then, over time, you had Magic become the one to rule Limbo. Now, with all that being said, for Belasco, it's not really him trying to reclaim what he lost, but try to claim something else that he never had before. Now, here's the thing, because you do have Wolverine, Psylocke, and Beast try their best to fight against them. But for Belasco, the dude is Magic, so he's really able to handle our guys very easily. And matter of fact, he does plan on using Psylocke as a vessel for something else, while Wolverine and Beast are locked up inside the cage. Now, we also learn here that for Belasco, he is technically working with Bloodscream, but not in the way where Bloodscream kind of believes. And I'll explain that here in a moment. Now, for a brief moment, we do jump back over to Bloodscreen, really because Lee Forrester and Paolo, they had stayed on the boat. And so when they look outside to the ocean, well, they see Bloodscreen arriving with 3 boats full of different men who are pirates under his control. Now, these pirates are technically very important for the overall story, and let me explain why. You see, for Belasco, he has this crystal that's really powerful enough on Earth already, but it's more powerful in a different dimension that belongs to a demon known as Keyrock. Now, we had just talked about Keyrock over our coverage in Wolverine, but for Keyrock, he's a very powerful demon with his own dimension. And so for Belasco, what he wants to do is use the crystal in the army of pirates to go into that other dimension and take over all the demons in that dimension and then bring those demons back over to Earth to take over the Earth. Here comes the problem though. Bloodscream has no idea about this at all because Belasco had lied to him. Belasco said, hey Bloodscream, we gotta work together. And the reason why, because the world is going to be invaded by a bunch of demons. And so you have Bloodscream going around the world getting all these different people become pirates for him to help defend the Earth from supposed invasion. But in reality, there's no invasion coming onto Earth. The invasion is going into that other reality. Now, this kind of leads into Larry Hama trying to wrap everything up very quickly here. And here's the reason why I'm saying that, because, okay, you do have Belasco open up the gateway that leads into Keyrock's dimension. Now, for Keyrock, he's kind of like, wait a second. Who dared to open up a gateway that leads into my dimension? Because that gateway and I were not ready to be, open or be confronted by somebody. But you do have Belasco say, oh, it was me. I'm the one who had opened up the gateway. Now for Belasco, his main goal now is just go in there and take over. Now for Bloodscream, he kind of realized that he has been played. And so now his goal is to also stop Belasco as well. Now, while all of this is happening, you do have our heroes still prisoners thanks to Belasco, but you have Lee on the boat with a sniper and she sees Belasco with the crystal. And so of course, she does shoot the crystal. Now, when she does that, the gateway kind of turns into a vortex, sucking everything in around it into that other dimension. And so for Bloodscream, he's kind of like, I gotta make sure that Belasco can never do anything like this at all, especially now because without the crystal, he's technically powerless. And so you have Bloodscream grab Belasco, they get sucked into Keyrock's dimension and the gateway closes. And that's really it for the entire storyline. The day is saved, but unfortunately for Bloodscream, he's now lost in a completely different dimension. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.